Welcome back to Overtly Critical Season 2. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Corwin.
And this week we watched
Slacker, directed by Richard Linklater from 1990, starring Richard Linklater, Kim Krazan, Mark James, Teresa Taylor, and a bunch of other people.
Slacker features an ensemble of misfits and anti-establishment citizens of Austin who wander around the town, crossing each other on various paths throughout the day, engaging in small talk and everyday activities. So Slacker, I've seen this movie before. This was my second watching. You had not seen it before, so I will let you give your first initial thoughts first.
I would describe this as kind of an anti-movie. It's really got nothing to say about anything. It doesn't really have a meaning, and it really doesn't have a plot. There is no real story arc. There's no character arcs. There's no main character. There's pretty much no development. There's even really no stakes in the movie. It's just people talking. And it's just conversations flowing into different conversations. And I knew it was weird because we talked about the movie before because you were really excited for this. And you had said that there's really not a main character and that it kind of just flows around and that it's very unique. But I hadn't quite realized that until I want to say about halfway through the movie when I realized there is no main character. Right. This is really going nowhere.
Well, what I like to say about the movie is I sort of see the main character of the movie not really being any particular person, but the city of Austin. It's almost like all these random individuals are sort of the parts that make up the whole. And that's sort of the larger idea that I felt from the movie, where it's kind of showing you the diversity of voices and people in the city. And it's not really attached to one person, one conversation. And it shows, obviously, like you said, the conversations will transfer to different people. And it's kind of like a very open, free-feeling movie. It's like the natural, flow of things.
A fly on the wall or
Right.
kind of just like an inactive part of these conversations.
It almost felt like, to me, on a really large scale, like just like a random summer day where you'll go over to one friend's house and go somewhere else. It's very aimless, I think is the word you've used before.
Yeah.
Especially for us watching it now. It's from 1990. It feels like a sort of a time capsule for like the pre-internet world where everything was people talking to each other. That's how news came to people. I mean, there was television, but you weren't walking around with a television like you are now pretty much. So it was a lot of just, word of mouth sort of stuff. There was not, you couldn't just call people as easily as you can now or find things out. So it felt, the world felt very big.
It felt very big, but also feels kind of small because you don't have like this instant view into into everything happening all at once, constant updates. Like, you could watch it on TV, but you could turn off the TV, whereas now we've got, this stuff where we're constantly getting updates about every little thing.
Yep.
We're 2000s kids, and we're kind of that transition generation between, like, we had the old 90s stuff, but we also grew up when it was getting phased out, and, like, we had a CRT TV as, like, our first TV, a big, massive thing. Used to play PS2 on that. That I always loved seeing those because It was just so iconic.
I wrote that it's a very realist movie. I mean, this is probably one of the most extreme examples of realism. And I know other works by Richard Linklater are similar, but this is like as bare bone as it gets.
There's basically no lighting in the movie. There's sections that are at night where if characters aren't directly in some kind of light, you really can't see them too well. Most of the shots in this movie are unbroken long shots.
Yeah.
They're not like there's really no close-ups at all. And that really gives you the perspective of just a person in this world because, you're not like sticking your face up in other people's faces, getting right in there, listening to them.
It's closer to like an objective documentary, almost like you said, fly on the wall thing. And when it comes to the long shots, one thing that I wrote down that I want to make sure I mention is how well choreographed it all was. Because this is something that I think can be missed on people sometimes, especially the first scene where I say first scene, the kind of like inciting incident of this non-narrative, if you want to call it, where the son hits his mom with his car. That whole scene travels around like this kind of turn on the road, but that whole thing had to be one take. And the camera move had to be perfect. Everybody had to say their lines exactly. Everything had to work well, and a lot of the scenes are like that.
I kind of wonder how much of it was improv.
It could have been.
Because just the flow of the conversations and just how long these takes are, I really think a lot of this probably was just improv and just people thinking stuff up to talk about.
It's also quite possible that Richard Linklater said, here's the context of the conversation, here's how it needs to end. Here's how it starts, here's how it ends, something that just go. A lot of the moments in the movie, I think, as I said, like the whole movie as a thing feels big to me, but a lot of the moments are very like, small talk things, but also like a lot of like even familiar moments. Like there's a lot of characters in the movie that I'm like, oh, I know somebody like that, or things that happen in the movie, like, oh, I've done that before, or I've seen that before.
It's not really a traditional movie experience, but if you're looking for something weird, this is a good one. You're not going to see another movie like this, but it's not for everyone, I think, and that's kind of the point.
I do have a note down there that says if you think there is a greater point, there really isn't.
Yeah, it's this overwhelming sense of anarchy to the entire movie of just not friggin' caring.
Hey everyone, my name is Dan. Welcome to this section of the Overtly Critical Film Show for Season 2. A new section called Audio. Well, new with me. A few days ago, we watched the film Slacker. And I'll be honest, not too much to work with for good audio. 90% of it, as a guesstimate, is natural sound. Most likely, someone just put an omnidirectional microphone in a place and just said, okay, go. There was so much echoing. There was something that was constant, and that was a high-pitched ringing, more like a tss, for a lot of the film, actually. I actually have a device that lets me measure hertz in certain audible ranges. There was just an 8,000 hertz ring in the background, and it kind of gets annoying after a while, especially if you're trained like me to hear this sort of stuff. There's a lot of walking scenes where footsteps, even by someone who's right next to the film set or right in front of the camera, can't be heard at all. The only really good audio scene was the 4 seconds of arcade machine in the small store. The punching sounds, for a microphone that was probably right in front of it, those were crisp. And whether or not they put like a distressor effect or a compressor on it so you could only hear the low sounds of those punches, so it was like something really nice and clean without any like arcade or electric noise or anything from the store. That was fantastic, actually. This movie had no opening title or song, and just sort of goes right into it with the car ride. And while the ending had a song, the end credits song was very creepy in a way, very unusual. And so was any other musical tone in the film at all. And the guitar scene, the guy playing the guitar for 10 seconds or so, he was only playing one chord, and the woman gave him a quarter, which does not surprise me because that was not good playing at all. But it adds humor. So that's the audio in Slacker. That's really all we got.
All right, so I think the first thing to talk about is the specific people. There's some memorable characters in the movie. Again, as like, mockumentary, bare bones as it is, there are some very filmic characters. Like the TV guy is one of my favorites with the anarchist. The TV guy is pretty funny because he's got this, as you said, like the CRTs, that kind of thing.
I love these got one strapped to his back.
Yeah, it's just
so interesting.
It's a weird detail, but it kind of fits that role of like the whole theme of the like very anti-establishment. In his case, it's like the media or like TV and all that stuff is like psychological powers, and so like we're gonna harness it. And
I was thinking when I was watching the movie that I wish there were more scenes like the TV guy and also the anarchist old man and like the kids that to me are just more interesting. The JFK guy or the moon landing guy who are just insufferable, and it just goes on. But that's very realistic to be stuck in a situation talking to someone who you're just done with. The crazy woman at the diner who's like going on about like how I'm a medical doctor, where it's just like you get people like that.
The movie's uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I'll say it.
That's a really good way to describe this movie. It's uncomfortable. It's realistic and uncomfortable.
This movie can get philosophical at moments, and I really like the old anarchist guy because You think, oh, like, anarchist, whatever. That's kind of. But this guy sees a guy breaking into his house, and he's like, which is against the law, and he offers him coffee. I like that scene because, and then he like tells him his life story, but it's like very much like a guy putting his like principles into practice almost. Like he just forgives a guy for breaking the law.
And then the guy doesn't really give a shit as he goes back to like his fellow like his friends or like gang members. I don't know, and it just feels like they're just kind of okay. That was a thing that happened. Moving on, which kind of the big theme of this movie of okay, that happened, moving on.
Right.
Guy ran over his mom and he's some crazy religious dude. Oh, moving on, next scene.
I think you made a verbal note, and maybe I'm mistaken, that you mentioned like that tarot card lady was a cool character. I don't know, maybe I
It's in the driveway where this person is like putting down pots as like some kind of menstrual cycle thing, and this one woman who's kind of like hippie-ish is talking to the character from the previous scene. There was a quote that I really liked, which was withdrawing in disgust is not the same as apathy. You say this movie's philosophical, and I agree, but it's not the kind of philosophical, like, this is a point I'm making. It's more the kind of dumbass philosophical discussions you get into your friends
very
at,
everyday,
like, a lunch table, or the, like, stoners get into.
Right. Which
like,
there is one about the Smurfs and Scooby-Doo.
Yeah,
I think,
that friggin' guy in, like, the restaurant. I was just thinking that. It's like, you listen to them, it's like, what? It's like, what the hell are you talking about?
Right. But yeah, I think there's some memorable moments as like, even though some people might find it bland here and there, which again, it's a slow movie. It's not a fast movie. It's very slowly paced. But there is some humor in there that I think is fun. There was a couple laughs, except at 48 minutes when I noted everyone looks bored. And that was about halfway through the JFK spiel in the library. And that's a patient girl.
Now, you mean everyone in the movie looks bored, or everyone in the room looks bored?
Everybody here who was watching it looked bored.
It's also just there's not a lot happening visually in many scenes because it's just like one unbroken shot.
Right.
So you can get bored very easily, which is why I think this movie might be better to watch under the influence of some substances because, when you're in that state, anything can be interesting.
Right. I think I said this in the opening. I think it just has like a very like liberating feeling. It's and I think like the transition between the characters and the stories I think is very smooth and it works really well. And that's helped by the camera. This is again about a town, a city, so things are supposed to overlap and connect. So I think the major ones is like a funny one was the kids. They're stealing from the vending machine and then selling the sodas at half price, essentially. And then later in the movie, some guy, which again is another kind of philosophical scene about homelessness, he gives a Coke to his girlfriend who she gives to a homeless guy. And he's like, oh, I got that half off. And it's like, oh, okay, we know where that came from. And the other one is the shirt, the guy who's like the anti-terrorist guy selling the Nelson Mandela shirts. He's selling this other weird, I don't know, it's like some weird hippie shirt kind of thing with like a face with like thumbs in the eyeballs. And we see someone earlier in the movie wearing that shirt. So just things like that come back. It shows that there maybe is a little more effort put into this than I think people would think at first.
There is a great deal of thought put into this movie. It's almost more of a photo essay than it is a movie. Which, to explain what I mean by that, is that a photo essay, or like an art gallery or a photo gallery, is a lot of like often loosely related images that fit like a theme, but they tell their own story or they show their own thing. This movie, these scenes are not really connected by more than the relationships between these characters of like not relationship, that's not the right word, of similarities between these characters and the fact that one character from one scene starts the next scene. But there's no plot, there's no through line really. And it's just it's aimless because it's about aimless characters. They're really going nowhere. None of them are like, I've got to get to work. I've got to go to the old cubicle job and do that shit. Good old 1990s office job America life. And I wrote down, I think I said this before, there's an overwhelming sense of anarchy to the movie. And that even shows on like a meta level to the point of why this movie was made. This is not a commercially viable movie.
No.
It's an anti-movie. This is, you put this in a theater, no one's gonna want to watch it. People who do are not gonna get it I'm sure was this released in theaters?
I think it won at Sundance. I don't think it was in wide theaters.
Yeah, exactly.
But a point to make here, and I can close with this, is you mentioned how it's like very aimless and stuff. I do notice, and you saying it's sort of like not made for a lot of people.
Absolutely not. It defies that.
The only thing you can really say that connects at least some of these stories is a sense of anti-authority, that authority can differ from some of these people. Some people complain about like presidential elections, like they mentioned Bush. Some people talk about terrorism, the U.S. government in certain ways, the media, all that stuff. And I think the reason why is because the people in this film are people that I think authorities in America, I think not that it's not today as well, but I think specifically at the time, these aren't the people that America wanted to be seen as representing their country. Even if a lot of people are like this or still are like this, like it's not a very glamorous look. They're slackers. They're not very glamorous people. It's like it's kind of like how in the 90s somewhere George Bush said something about like,
we are going to keep on trying to strengthen the American family, to make American families a lot more like the Waltons and a lot less like the Simpsons.
These are sort of the taboo people in our culture that I think wouldn't watch the movie in the first place.
Hi, welcome to Funny Notes Season 2, where there's a slight dark patch of darkness right here on my head, where we're going to need another light to shine it on there. The title of this is People Make the Worst City. Don't care, drive taxi. I don't care about your ass conversation. Lol, too slow, Grandma. I have a right to run you over. Boo! Big chonkers.
Oh my God.
Diversity good. Pepsi and cock. Wait, meant Coke. Racist. Big forehead. Ryan's receding hairline. Oh, it's receding, all right. You should be ashamed. You should. Kids are smart. Sorry, guys, we're past our prime. The rest of these are an homage to what I've been doing this past week. Nerd win, fat win, JFK win, get a job win, old win, prudge win. I don't know what I put right there. Gun win, shoot win. Sorry, this has been the first episode of Season 2 of Funny Notes. Are you clapping for me? Yes.
I guess to wrap up the sort of lesson that I can say I learned from the movie.
Our big takeaway here.
The big takeaway. My lesson from this movie is that you can break the rules to create realism, which is what this movie did. So Richard Linklater had, sort of a concept for this non-character movie. He wanted to make it about Austin because that's where he's from. He wanted to make it about the city, and the conventions of narrative film couldn't get him to achieve his goal, so he had to break them. That's the way that I see that I could take away from this movie is like, it's one of those things where, again, a theme of mine is I like things that I haven't seen before. Like, if I can look at somebody and say, oh, I've seen a movie like that before, it's less likely to resonate with me or feel fresh. So when I saw this for the first time, I was pretty blown away. Because interestingly, I was taking script writing at the time that I watched this, and I was like, this is a movie that has no main character. There's no sort of hero's journey or anything.
There is no midpoint. There is no first, second, or third
Nope.
act.
You could maybe say there's an inciting incident with a car crash, but maybe. It just
No.
Okay.
No, I'm just going to say no. It's
All right.
not a second incident.
But it kind of showed me that, sometimes you need to break the rules, and sometimes it can lead to something really cool, different, and unexpected, and it can be more effective that way.
My lesson, my takeaway from this movie is that if you want to really think about what a movie should be and what a movie can be, watch this movie, because there's not really any movie like it. And, it doesn't fit into documentary, doesn't fit into pseudo-documentary, even though there's that great bit at the end of the credits where it says entirely based off real events. Any relationship to anything fictional is completely accidental.
Great credits.
Great joke at the end of the credits. Amazing. I love credit gags. A lot of character names in the credits are hilarious, too.
Oh, yeah.
Getting back on track, though, It's not a narrative either. It's not surreal. It's very real. It's very realistic. It's totally unique. If you're a filmmaker, you should watch this movie just to challenge yourself. If you're not, you're probably not going to like this. I will admit, I don't know if I'm ever going to want to watch this movie again just because I did not find the experience really enjoyable. But I will say that I have a new appreciation for it after talking, with you about this movie, Ryan, which is the point of the podcast. That's why we're here.
I think this movie is excellent. I think it set goals for itself and it accomplished them. And I like movies that shake things up, and I like movies that feel different. I think, as we've said before, conventions exist for a reason, but it also is art. This is a very artsy movie. I mean, there's been art movies that are way more artsy than this, but from a concept standpoint, it's very outside the box. And again, I haven't seen anything like it. I might see something like it again. I don't know, but it definitely is its own thing. And I think Slacker is a really good look at an indie film, which we didn't discuss much, I guess. It's a really low budget. It's $23,000. He made the movie with a bunch of, I think, random actors and somebody who was like a dolly grip guy. And I think some audio people. That's probably his whole crew. So this film is very bare bones, and I think it's a more of an experience than it is a film or a story, I guess I'd say. All right, we got to pick our movie for next week, so he's going to shake it up.
There it is. You know it. You love it. The Black Box. Don't know how long it's going to stay on the show. We have some new set ideas, but it's still here now. We got these cute little scroll things going on. I'm going to shuffle them up.
Man, sometimes you really just need to pick a movie sometimes. God, let's just watch something next week randomly out of this scroll box here. Oh my God, we're going to watch Schlock.
Wait, you actually put that in there?
Ryan gets his fucking wish!
Oh my God.
We're going to watch Schlock next week. This is going to be excellent. I cannot wait. Slocker. Any closing statements? Thanks for coming to episode 1
good
of
night,
season
everyone.
2, and see you next week.